she whispered. "It hurts when I sit." The town looked away, but one man believed her. The wind came down from the hills dry and sharp, pulling dust and brittle leaves across the broken wooden steps of Mrs. Glendon's boarding house. It howled like something unsettled, something searching. Jonah Bell, newly returned from 5 years of rail work up north, stepped off the stagecoach with a canvas bag slung over his shoulder and a weariness in his eyes deeper than most men twice his age. The town hadn't changed much. Still one main road. Still too many eyes watching from behind curtains. Still that rotting church bell that never rang. He made for the general store, planning to grab supplies and maybe a flask of that peach liquor Old Man Rivens brewed out back, when he heard it. Not loud, not clear, just a voice, barely more than a whisper. "Don't go inside." He turned. Nothing, only the dry rustle of branches, but something in the voice, brittle, hurting, hidden, clung to him like burrs on denim. By the time he reached the store porch, he heard it again, closer now. "It hurts when I sit." His spine tensed. This time he saw her. A girl? No, a young woman, maybe 16, maybe younger if you looked close, standing in the alley, between the feed store and the dressmaker's place. Blonde hair tangled, eyes so dull they didn't reflect light. Jonah blinked. She shrank back, like a kicked dog expecting another blow. Then came the sound of boots behind him. Sheriff Orland Ketcher. Thick-chested, mustache always too neat, always too clean for a man meant to chase outlaws. "You don't want to get mixed up in that one," Ketcher said flatly, like he was talking about spoiled meat. "Girls touched, comes and goes, says strange things, has a tendency to make up trouble." Jonah didn't answer, just looked back toward the alley. She was gone. Only a torn ribbon fluttered where she'd stood, caught on a nail. 3 days later, the boarding house. Mrs. Glendon poured coffee like it was blood from a wound, slow, bitter steaming. Jonah sat across from her, eyes heavy. "You seen her again?" she asked, voice low. She didn't need to say who. He nodded once. Behind the church this time, she was trying to sit down on the stone ledge, winced like she'd been stabbed. Mrs. Glendon said nothing for a long time. Then, "Her name's Lily. Been around a few months. Came here from somewhere east. Claimed she was going to work as a seamstress. But something's not right with that girl. She flinches at shadows. Wears long sleeves in heat. Don't talk to nobody straight." "Anybody look into it?" Jonah asked. Mrs. Glendon's mouth tightened. This town don't look too hard at what it doesn't want to see, especially when the sheriff tells them not to. Jonah's knuckles whitened around the coffee mug. That night, by the river's edge, the moon lit the water like silver blood. Jonah stood beneath the old cottonwood tree, watching its leaves dance above the current. She appeared again. Same tattered dress, same broken eyes. She didn't speak this time, just sat carefully on a flat rock and winced. Her lips trembled. Jonah took a slow step forward, careful not to spook her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She looked up at him like he'd spoken a language no one had ever tried before. "Lily," she whispered. He knelt down not too close. "Who hurt you?" Her body went still. Then in the quietest voice he'd ever heard, "The pastor. He says it's penance, says it'll save my soul." Jonah felt something cold crack inside his chest. Later that night, Jonah's room at the boarding house. Jonah didn't sleep. Not really. He sat by the window, rifle propped beside him, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. Every time he blinked, he saw her face again, pale in the moonlight, voice like a broken reed. "The pastor, he says it's penance." He'd known cruelty, the kind that wears boots and drinks hard. But there was something else in this, something colder, something with power behind it. He left before sunrise. Not toward the church, not yet. He went to the records hall. The next morning, town archives. Miss Delahart was the closest thing the town had to a librarian, a spinster with sharp eyes and sharper memory. She raised a brow as Jonah entered. "Need something, Mr. Bell?" He leaned on the counter, looking for church employment records. Maybe from 3-4 months back, names of any girls who came through recently. Young, alone. She frowned. "That's mighty specific." He shrugged. "Let's say I've got a reason." She studied him a beat longer, then turned and fetched a cracked leather book from the back. As she flipped pages, she muttered, "They don't usually bother registering them. Girls like that come and go quiet. Pastor says they are doing God's work, taking in the lost." Jonah felt his jaw tighten. Then she stopped, pointed. "There, Lily Grace, brought in under moral rehabilitation. No last name, no guardian." He traced the line with his finger. "Address? None listed," Della said softly. "Just a single word, quarters." Jonah knew what that meant. The back rooms beneath the church, where the stone walls were too thick for screams to pass. That afternoon, behind the church, the back of St. Elias Church was silent. The sun hung hot overhead, but the shadow near the cellar door was cold. Jonah waited until the bell rang for noon mass, then slipped through the back gate. He found the cellar entrance, locked with a rusted chain. One kick shattered the bolt. He descended into darkness. The smell hit him first. Mildew, sweat, something else. Something raw. 3 doors, all closed. Heavy wood. He opened the first. Empty. Cot. Blanket. Chains on the floor. Second. Same. Third. She was there. Lily flinched as the light hit her. Her wrists were bound to the bedposts. Her dress torn. Her eyes wild. Jonah dropped to one knee. "Lily," he whispered. "It's me. You're safe now." She shook her head violently. "No, no, he'll come. He'll come again." Jonah cut the ropes with his knife. "Not if I'm standing here." But the moment she stood, he heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. And then a voice. Calm. Almost sweet. "Well now, what's this?" Pastor Graham was tall. Too tall for his black coat. His eyes were soft, but wrong, like glass eyes on a doll. Jonah stood. "You touch her again," he said, voice low. "I'll bury you myself." The pastor tilted his head. "I fear you misunderstand. The girl is sick, confused. We've been helping her. She's grateful, aren't you, Lily?" Lily recoiled behind Jonah. The pastor smiled. "So be it. But if you take her now, the town won't like it. They trust me. They'll say you're interfering with God's work." Jonah stepped forward, gun at his side. "I'm not here for the town's permission." The pastor's smile didn't falter. "You'll regret this." 2 days later, Mrs. Glendon's boarding house. Lily sat wrapped in a quilt, her knees drawn to her chest. Mrs. Glendon brought tea, but the girl barely touched it. Jonah sat across from her. He didn't push, he waited. Finally, Lily spoke. "He told me I was wicked. That pain was the price of purity. He said if I loved God, I wouldn't cry. I tried not to." Jonah's voice cracked. "You don't have to try anymore." Her hands trembled. "He'll come for me." Jonah didn't argue, because she was right. Later that week, whispers spread like fire through dry brush. The pastor had denounced Jonah publicly from the pulpit, called him a liar, a drunk, a fornicating outsider stirring up filth. Some believed it, others weren't sure, but no one stepped forward. Jonah tried the law. Sheriff Ketcher spat tobacco in the dirt. "I ain't meddling in church matters. If the girl's got a problem, she can speak for herself." "She's a child," Jonah snapped. "She's scared." Ketcher shrugged. "Not my problem." Jonah left the office burning with helpless rage. That night, thunder rolled outside. Lily curled near the hearth, finally asleep. Jonah sat sharpening his knife. He wasn't sure what the law could do, but he knew what he could do. He just needed proof. Next morning, Jonah approached Miss Della again. "I need your help." She hesitated. "I believe you," she said finally. "I always had questions, but you'll need more than whispers." He nodded. "That's why I need you to sneak into the ledger room at the church." She paled. "I can't, Della. He's done this before. I'm sure of it, and you know it too." A long silence. Then she nodded. "I'll find what I can." Later that evening, she returned with trembling hands. She carried a stained, leather-bound journal. "I found this under his private drawer." Jonah opened it. What he read made him sick. Names, dates, descriptions, dozens of them. Some girls had disappeared. Others had been sent away, each marked as cleansed or awaiting penance. Jonah read one entry twice. "LG, defiant, requires repeated penance." showing signs of softness, risk of seduction. His jaw clenched. He had what he needed, but bringing it to the sheriff? Useless. He needed the town to see, to feel. That Sunday the church was full. Jonah waited until the pastor stepped up to the pulpit. Then slowly he walked in, Lily beside him, Della trailing behind. Murmurs started. Jonah climbed the steps, held the journal high. "This man is no shepherd," he said, voice cutting through the stunned silence. "He's a predator, a deviant. He hurt this girl, and others." The pastor laughed softly. "And you expect us to believe the word of a drunk, a hysterical girl, and a bitter spinster?" Jonah didn't answer. He opened the book, read the names aloud, then the descriptions. The church was dead silent. Then a gasp. Mrs. Keller, her eyes wide. "My niece, she came here last year, never wrote back." Another woman sobbed. "He told me my daughter ran off, said she was sinful." The crowd stirred. Anger built like thunder before a storm. Jonah stepped aside. Ask where they are." Pastor Graham's face twitched. Then he ran, out the side door, but Jonah was faster. He tackled him on the stone steps. The journal tumbled, pages scattered in the wind like confessions too long buried. Outside St. Elias Church, rain began to fall, soft at first, as if the sky itself felt ashamed. Jonah's hands gripped the collar of Pastor Graham's black coat, fists clenched and steady. The pastor sputtered beneath him, face scraping against the cold stone. Blood trickled from his lip. The illusion of holiness shattered. Around them, the crowd spilled from the church like sheep no longer fooled by the shepherd. Sheriff Ketcher pushed his way through, rifle slung low. "What the hell is this?" he barked, though his voice lacked conviction. Jonah didn't rise. "Ask him what happened to Lily, to the other girls." The sheriff's eyes flicked to Lily, who stood behind Mrs. Glendon, barefoot, drenched but unflinching. "She's confused," Ketcher muttered. "You people stirring up panic over gossip and journals." Jonah stood now, slowly, but his voice thundered. "Read it yourself." He tossed the journal at Ketcher's feet. The sheriff didn't move, but Della stepped forward, her voice clear, cold, and dangerous in a way. Jonah had never heard from her before. "I read it. I saw the entries, the names. Some are children I taught their letters. Some are gone." A murmuring rose from the crowd. Not confusion, not fear, anger. Old man Rivens, hunched with whiskey breath and cloudy eyes, stepped forward. "My sister's girl sent here after her ma passed. We never heard from her again." Pastor Graham finally spoke, voice slick, poisonous. "They were unclean, all of them, given to temptation. I cleansed them." Ketcher turned pale. Someone in the crowd screamed, then sobbed. Jonah moved in front of Lily, just in case. Then the impossible happened. Ketcher raised his rifle on Graham. "You are under arrest," he said hoarsely, "for assault, kidnapping, and whatever else we find in that damn journal." Pastor Graham hissed, but didn't fight. Not anymore. The holy man was gone. All that was left was a scared, sick little man in robes. As the crowd watched, silent and stunned, the pastor was led away in shackles. Later that night, the storm had passed. The fire crackled low, casting soft gold over the room. Lily sat cross-legged on a woven rug, sipping warm broth. Her fingers no longer trembled. Jonah sat near the hearth, boots off, watching her. She caught his gaze, smiled shyly. "I used to think I was invisible," she said. "I thought maybe if I disappeared good enough, it'd stop hurting." Jonah leaned forward. "But you didn't disappear. You survived." She looked into the fire. "You believed me. No one ever did before." Jonah didn't speak, just nodded. That meant more than any sermon ever could. 1 week later there was a town hall gathering. Red Creek Gulch hadn't held a town hall in years, but now the pews were packed. Sheriff Ketcher stood stiffly near the front. The journal, now marked and tagged, sat beside him, evidence of the town's darkest silence. Jonah leaned against the back wall, arms crossed. Mayor Finney cleared his throat. "It appears Pastor Graham has confessed to several of the accusations, and we failed to see what was happening." Murmurs of guilt echoed across the hall. "We'll be forming a protection council," he continued. No child will be left in the shadows again. That is my word." Jonah caught Lily's eye from across the room. She gave a tiny nod. She wasn't a secret anymore. She wasn't a whisper. 3 weeks later, Jonah heard the knock around midnight. He opened the door and found Sheriff Ketcher standing there. The man looked older now, like something had been carved out of him. "I came to say," he paused, cleared his throat. "I was wrong, about everything." Jonah didn't answer. Ketcher handed him a folded paper. "Official record. Lily's safe. Church's quarters condemned. There'll be a fund for her and others like her." Jonah took the paper, eyes scanning it. "You didn't believe her?" "No," Ketcher said, voice low. "But you did. That's the only reason she's alive." He tipped his hat. "I'll be going now." As the sheriff walked away, Jonah watched the night. For the first time in a long time, it felt clean. 2 months later, spring had begun to whisper across the land. Wild flowers pushed up near the edge of Jonah's fence, and the peach trees had begun to bud. Lily knelt in the garden, planting rows of sweet corn. Her hair had grown out, golden and thick, tucked behind her ears. Jonah leaned on the porch railing. "You don't have to do all that today." She looked up and smiled. "I want to." Her voice was stronger now, still soft but sure. She stood, brushing dirt from her hands. "You know," she said, eyes on the soil, "it still hurts. Sometimes, not just sitting inside." Jonah stepped off the porch and joined her. "Pain lingers, but so does hope." Lily looked at him, serious now. "You ever think, maybe the world's broken too big to fix?" He thought about that, then answered, "Maybe. But even if all you can fix is one corner of it, maybe that's enough." 1 year later, the town had changed. St. Elias Church stood boarded and abandoned. A new chapel had opened across the way, one built by hands that had once been silent. Lily stood by the riverbank, a sketch pad in her hands. She drew the trees, the stone ledge, and the man who had found her sitting here once too hurt to speak. Jonah stood behind her, arms folded. She turned the sketch around. It was him, but not just him, a scene. That first moment, when he knelt and asked her name. "I wanted to remember," she said. He smiled. "You ever think about leaving this place?" she asked. "Sometimes. I might want to," she said. "Someday, see what's out there, but not yet." They stood in silence. Then Lily said, "You know what the worst part used to be? When it hurt to sit, and no one cared. I thought maybe that's how the world worked, that maybe I deserved it." Jonah looked at her. "You didn't." She smiled, soft and radiant. "I know that now." She looked down at the sketch again. Because one man listened, the wind stirred the cottonwood leaves. Lily stood tall now, steady in her steps, no longer flinching, no longer hiding. The town had looked away once, but now it watched her grow. The girl who whispered became the girl who painted, who planted, who taught others to speak when it hurt. And Jonah? He stayed nearby, just in case the world ever tried to forget again. 1 year later, the wind changed that morning. Jonah knew it before he stepped onto the porch. Something in the stillness felt off, like the quiet before thunder. Lily was at the chapel, helping with morning lessons. She'd taken to teaching younger girls, the ones too shy to speak above a whisper, too used to being ignored. Jonah saddled his horse, intending to fetch a plank from the lumber yard, when he spotted the stagecoach pull in. It groaned to a stop in front of the general store. Dust spilled into the street, and then he saw her, a small girl, maybe 12, thin as a blade of grass, brown hair cut jagged. She stepped down, clutching a threadbare satchel. No one met her, no mother, no guardian. She glanced around, shrinking with each step. Her eyes darted, hollow. Jonah felt it again, that itch behind the ribs. He dismounted. "Hey," he said gently. The girl froze. "I'm Jonah. You waiting for someone?" She looked down at her boots. Said to wait. "He'll come for me, the preacher." Jonah's stomach twisted. "Who sent you?" She hesitated. "The girls at the shelter said there was a man here who saved someone. I told them what happened. They said, 'Come here, he might help.'" Jonah knelt, heart pounding. "What's your name?" "Eva." Her voice was quieter than Lily's had ever been. He took her hand. "Come with me." That evening at Lily's cottage beside the chapel, the light inside was warm and amber, the scent of stew hanging in the air. Lily listened quietly as Eva spoke, in broken pieces between sips of broth. Her dress sleeves were too long, But when she reached for her spoon, they slid back, revealing bruises. Jonah didn't need to ask. Later, when Eva curled up on the spare cot, Lily stepped outside with Jonah. "She's like I was," she whispered, "but younger." Jonah nodded. "I thought we fixed this." Lily looked out over the hills, expression unreadable. "No, we fixed one corner, but the dark always creeps back in. That's why we build the light wider." Jonah looked at her. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "Yes," she said, firm. "It's time to start something permanent." 1 month later, they built it from the bones of the old schoolhouse, burned in a fire 5 years back. The townsfolk had never rebuilt it, but now hands showed up, quietly at first, then more. Mrs. Glendon brought wood. Old man Rivens hammered nails with hands that shook but didn't stop. Even Sheriff Ketcher came, dragging lumber without a word, and Lily, she painted the sign. Haven House, a place for girls who had nowhere else to go. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was hers, but not everyone celebrated. Behind closed doors, mutterings returned. "She's stirring up trouble again. She'll bring more broken girls here. They are not our problem." Jonah heard them in the saloon, the store, even in the church pews. But he didn't care, because for every coward who whispered, another man built a wall. Another woman donated cloth or food. Still one voice stood out. Deacon Wallace, new preacher, young, handsome, but his smile felt rehearsed. "She means well," Wallace had said, "but sometimes we embolden sin by cradling it." Jonah watched him closely. Lily too. 2 weeks later, it happened just after midnight. Smoke. Screams. Jonah woke to the smell of burning pine. He ran barefoot, rifle in hand, across the field to Haven House. The left wing was already engulfed. Flames crawled up the frame like fingers. Children poured out, coughing, crying. Lily herded them like a shepherd through hell. Jonah found Eva crouched near the garden fence, eyes wild. He scooped her up just as the roof collapsed. By dawn, the building was gone. Only ash and tears remained. The morning after, Lily stood barefoot in the blackened soil, soot on her cheeks. She didn't cry, not now, but her hands trembled as she held one of Eva's charred drawings. "She worked so hard on this," Lily whispered. Jonah touched her shoulder. "We'll rebuild. They wanted us gone," she said, voice like gravel. Jonah didn't ask who, because he knew. Sheriff Ketcher crouched near the burned-out wall. He held up a piece of torn cloth, a strip of black fabric with a gold cross stitched on it. Jonah stared. "Wallace," he said. The sheriff stood. "We can't prove it, not yet." But he was the only one pushing against Lily in public. Jonah growled. He called her a corrupter. Ketcher met his eyes. "Let's find proof." 1 week later, Jonah broke into the rectory under moonlight. No hesitation. He found a drawer in Wallace's room, locked. He pried it open. Inside, torn sketches of Haven House with X's over them, sermon notes about purging the impure, and a burned edge of a child's drawing, the same paper Eva used. He brought it all to Ketcher. "This enough?" The sheriff's eyes burned. "It is now." Wallace was arrested before sunrise. The town didn't cheer, but it didn't protest either. Something had shifted. 2 months later, they rebuilt Haven House. Stronger, wider, with stone walls, a kitchen, a schoolroom, and a bell tower. This time it rang. Once every morning. To say, "We're still here." A year passed. Lily stood before a small group of new girls. Sunlight filtered through the windows. She held Eva's hand. The girl had grown, her hair now tied in braids, her eyes brighter. Lily spoke. "Once I whispered, and someone heard me. I want you all to know you don't have to whisper anymore." Behind the glass, Jonah watched. He'd seen war. He'd seen silence. He'd seen men hurt worse by what they didn't do than what they did. But this was healing. One evening, as the stars began to blink awake, Lily walked beside Jonah near the old cottonwood tree. She sat on the same stone she once winced upon. And this time, when she sat, she didn't flinch. She looked up at the sky. "I used to think I'd never feel safe again," she said softly. Jonah didn't reply. "But now, it doesn't hurt when I sit." She looked at him, smile trembling. You know what still hurts, though? He raised an eyebrow. That I had to whisper. He nodded. But because you did, 100 others won't have to. And they sat there together, not broken, just whole. 2 years later, Lily stood before a panel of 5 county officials. Her hair was tied back in a neat braid, her dress modest but freshly pressed. Her voice was clear, though her hands were trembling behind the podium. There's a home in Red Creek, she said. Not perfect, but it saves lives. Girls like Eva, like me, we come broken, we leave whole, and yet we have no official protection, no recognition. A man in a gray coat cleared his throat. Miss Grace, with all due respect, your home isn't sanctioned. It's not affiliated with any state program. There are liabilities. Lily didn't flinch. We're affiliated with pain. That's all the girls know when they arrive. If you won't give us money or papers, at least give us safety. Let us exist. Let us protect them. Another panelist asked, and who oversees this home? Lily turned slightly. Jonah stood at the back of the chamber, hat in hand. Me, he said, voice low but steady. But only when she lets me. The panel chuckled softly, tension broken. Lily smiled, and in that moment, it became clear she wasn't asking for charity. She was offering them redemption. Then 1 month later, the paper came in the mail, sealed in wax and signed by the county clerk. The Haven House of Red Creek is hereby recognized as an official refuge for at-risk youth under provisional protection of the state of Calhoun County. Mrs. Glendon wept openly. Della Hart baked 4 loaves of peach bread. And Jonah, he sat alone by the riverbank that night, letting the sound of the current wash over the long ache of his past. They'd done it, but he also knew, with recognition came risk. They came dressed in suits, clean shoes, fancy wagons. 2 men from the State Oversight Bureau. We'll need to inspect the premises, one said. Ensure it meets the standards. Lily nodded politely. Of course. Come in. They walked through the halls, measured rooms, took notes. One leaned toward Jonah as they passed the kitchen. You sure a girl like her can handle this? She's what, barely 20? Jonah's jaw flexed. She's more qualified than anyone I've met in 40 years. Still, the men weren't satisfied. Later that week, a notice arrived. You will be required to install separate lodging for males and females. Supervised contact only. Restrictions on any wards under the age of 14. Jonah read it aloud, frowning. Lily took the paper, read it again, then tore it neatly down the center. They think because we were born broken, we're always a risk. That pain is contagious. Jonah raised an eyebrow. What do we do? She didn't hesitate. We build what they ask, but we do it our way. The new addition wasn't just functional. It was beautiful. Hand-painted murals, flowers planted in the courtyard, a shared library between boys and girls. They called it the Quiet Wing, a place to heal in peace. Even the inspectors were stunned when they returned. This isn't regulation, one said. No, Lily replied. It's better. They didn't argue. One cold morning, Jonah found Ava curled up in the chapel, knees pulled to her chest. Her hands trembled. He knelt beside her. Talk to me. She didn't respond, only stared at the old drawing she kept in her coat pocket, the one she made after the fire. She's back, she whispered. Jonah frowned. Who? My stepmother. I saw her, in town, with a man. She looked at me like she wanted to take me back. Jonah's chest tightened. That woman had given Eva to a traveling preacher in exchange for silver and gin. Legally, she had no rights. But legally didn't mean much in towns with empty jails and long shadows. Jonah stood. We'll handle it. That afternoon he found her in the saloon. Painted face, fake smile, still poison behind the eyes. You don't belong here, Jonah said. She laughed. Neither do half the girls you're hoarding up there. He stepped closer. Say her name again and I'll drag you out of here and drop you at the county line myself. She tilted her head. They come from places worse than me. You know that, don't you? Jonah didn't flinch. I also know that every one of them is better than you ever were. He didn't lay a hand on her, but the bartender saw the look in his eye and motioned for her to leave. She did. Eva never saw her again. One day, a letter arrived from a girl in Junction Valley, 2 counties over. It was addressed simply to the woman who once whispered, Inside, the girl wrote, "Someone told me your story, that you were hurt, and you whispered, and someone listened. I don't have the courage to speak yet, but knowing you did, maybe I will." Lily read the letter 3 times. Then she wept. 5 years had passed. The garden was fuller now. Roses, corn, a cherry tree gifted by Old Man Rivens before he passed. Jonah sat on the porch. Lily walked out, dirt on her hands, smile on her face. "You always said pain lingers," she said. "But so does hope." He looked at her. "You remember that?" She sat beside him. Every day, they watched Eva playing cards with a new group of girls under the tree. Lily leaned her head on Jonah's shoulder. "I used to whisper," she said, "because I thought that's all I could do." Jonah didn't respond. She lifted her gaze toward the house. "But now, I don't whisper anymore." 6 years after the fire, the new chapel was no longer just a place of prayer. It was a gathering hall, a schoolhouse on weekdays, and a shelter during storms. Its walls had been painted with bright murals, each one drawn by the children who once flinched at shadows. Today the room was packed. Lily stood before them, not as a girl, not even as a survivor, but as a woman many now called Miss Grace. She held a bundle of ledgers, names, testimonies, letters from across Caledon County and beyond. "We weren't meant to stay quiet," she said. "We weren't meant to survive in silence." She paused, looked to Jonah. "We were meant to change things." A hush fell over the room. "I'm not here to shame this town. I'm here because the girl I used to be lived here, and was ignored here, and was saved here. We owe her, and girls like her, more than sorrow. We owe them action." Applause. Quiet at first, then louder. Mrs. Glendon wiped her eyes. Della Hart stood in the back, nodding slowly, and Jonah, he simply smiled, proud and quiet. Later that night, Lily and Jonah were on the porch. A soft breeze moved through the cornfields. "You didn't have to stay this long," Lily said. Jonah leaned back in the creaking wooden chair. "I didn't have anywhere better to be." She turned toward him, suddenly serious. "You ever think of leaving? Really leaving?" He thought about it, then answered, "Used to. Not anymore. Not since you made this place matter." Lily looked down. "I'm thinking of expanding, opening a sister home in Junction Valley." Jonah's brows lifted. "Big step," she nodded. "I'll need someone to run this one." He gave her a slow grin. "Guess I'm not going anywhere after all." One rainy afternoon, Lily returned to where it began. The cellar beneath St. Elias still stood, sealed, abandoned, forgotten by most. She stood at the top of the steps, Jonah beside her. "I used to dream about this place," she said. "Waking dreams. Nightmares." Jonah didn't interrupt. "I think I need to go back in, just once. Not as a prisoner, but as someone who lived." He didn't try to stop her. They descended together. The air was stale. Cobwebs danced along the beams. 3 doors. The one on the right still had scratch marks on the frame. Lily touched it gently. Then she stepped inside. The cot was gone. Only dust remained. She knelt and placed a small wooden carving, a sunflower, in the center of the floor. "I'm leaving her here," she whispered. "The girl I used to be." Then she stood and walked out without flinching. But then it came quiet, like most cruel things. He didn't complain. Not at first. Just blamed the cough on the dust, the slow steps on age. But one morning, Lily found him passed out beside the chicken coop. The doctor arrived, left with a frown. "Lungs," he said. "Years of dust and cold. Maybe something worse. Could be months. Could be less." Lily sat beside Jonah's bed that night, holding his hand. "You don't get to leave yet," he chuckled, voice raspy. "I don't think I get to choose." Tears welled up. "You saved me. You can't just go." He looked at her. "No," he said softly. "You saved you. I just stood still long enough to hear it." The last week, Jonah refused to leave the garden porch. He wanted to see the sky. Lily sat beside him daily, reading letters from the girls they had helped. From Eva, now 16, healthy, painting murals in Junction Valley. From Jessa, married, pregnant, running her own tiny shelter in Elkhorn Bend. From children who once whispered. Jonah held Lily's hand. "You know," he said weakly, I spent my life thinking I wasn't good enough to do anything that mattered. She gripped his hand tighter. You mattered to me. That night, under a violet sky and the soft rustle of corn stalks, Jonah Bell passed. Not alone, not unloved. After the funeral, Lily stood alone beneath the old cottonwood near the river. She carved a small inscription into the bark. He listened. No dates, no speeches, just truth. 2 years later, Lily took the podium in St. Verona again. Older now, wiser, fierce. She carried a new journal. Within it were the stories of 50 girls from 20 counties. They had been heard, housed, healed. I don't come to speak of trauma, Lily said. I come to speak of what grows after it. The auditorium was silent. She looked to the back. Eva stood there, beside Jessa, beside others. I was once a girl who whispered, and one man believed me. Now I speak so others don't have to whisper anymore. A new arrival at Haven House. The sun was setting behind the wheat fields. A wagon pulled up. A girl stepped down. 11, maybe 12. Freckles. Shoulders tense. Lily met her at the gate. Welcome, she said, smiling softly. The girl looked around. What is this place? Lily knelt. Looked her in the eye. This is where the hurting ends. The girl didn't answer, just nodded slowly, and walked inside. Later that night, Lily sat on the porch, alone. The wind carried a faint sound, a whisper. But this time it wasn't fear. It was a voice from memory. Jonah's voice, warm and slow. Maybe you can't fix the whole world, but if you can fix one corner of it, maybe that's enough. She smiled. Because that corner, it wasn't broken anymore. 6 months passed. Her name was Claire. She arrived at dusk, escorted by a rancher from 4 towns over. Hair black as coal, eyes stormy, arms crossed the entire ride. Didn't thank the driver, didn't make eye contact. Lily welcomed her with warmth, same way she had 100 others. But Claire said nothing. Not that night, not the next. Eva, now 17 and mentoring the youngest, tried every trick she knew. Drawing, games, shared chores. Nothing. She's angry, Eva whispered to Lily. But not in the scared way. It's like she thinks we are lying. Lily understood that. Pain could harden people in different ways. Some flinched, others bit. Claire bit. Then it happened in the garden. 2 younger girls accidentally bumped into Claire while passing the watering cans. She shoved one, hard. Don't touch me. Lily stepped in gently. Hey, they didn't mean to. I don't care, Claire screamed. This place is fake. You don't care. You just pretend, so you can feel good. The garden froze. Lily knelt, voice calm. No one here is pretending. Then why did he still hurt me? Claire cried. Silence. Even the birds fell quiet. Lily stood slowly and whispered, because monsters don't disappear just because we build something good. They keep coming, but so do we. Claire's breath hitched, and for the first time, something flickered behind her eyes that wasn't just rage. 1 week later, Claire came to breakfast, sat, ate a full plate, said nothing, but didn't run, didn't flinch when someone touched her shoulder. That was enough. Lily smiled quietly as she watched. A storm breaking didn't always make noise. Sometimes it came with stillness. Meanwhile, Sheriff Ketcher arrived late one evening with a wooden trunk. Found it while clearing Jonah's old shed, he said. Figured it was yours. Inside were old sketches from Lily's early years, letters from girls Jonah had helped track down, a journal his, with rough penmanship and weathered pages. Lily opened it slowly. Near the end, in his final entry, I used to think I was just a man watching the world go by. But then that little girl whispered, and I listened. And when I listened, I became something I never thought I'd be, useful. She pressed the page to her chest and cried, the kind of cry that doesn't ache but releases. 2 months later, they founded the Whisper Network, a coalition of safe homes, inspired by Lily's model, scattered across the state. Each home painted one wall with the same quote, "Speak, even if it's a whisper, someone will hear." Lily became the network's coordinator, not a title she sought, but one she bore with pride. She traveled between towns, met other survivors turned caretakers. Eva led the Red Creek branch. Jessa opened her second home in Elkhorn Bend. And Claire? She started drawing, in silence, at first, then slowly, in speech. 2 years later, people came from every corner. Women with lined faces, young boys rescued from labor camps, girls who now stood tall with braids and books. Lily stood before them, not in robes, not behind a pulpit, just herself. She held Jonah's journal in one hand, spoke into the wind. I don't stand here because I'm strong. I stand because I was weak, and someone didn't look away. One man listened, and now 1,000 voices echo what mine once whispered. She opened the journal, read the quote he had written in his final week. If pain is loud, let healing be louder. The governor's visit. The governor rode in by rail, suit sharp, hands soft, surrounded by photographers and aides. He walked the halls of Haven House, smiled, nodded, then said to Lily, "You've done a fine job. Ever consider politics?" She blinked. Politics? He nodded. You'd win. Easily. The survivor who changed the region. Lily looked around, at Claire painting birds on the back wall, at Eva reading by the hearth, at the sound of the dinner bell. No, Lily said. My place is here, in the dirt, with the whispers. The governor tilted his head. That's a shame. You could do big things. She smiled gently. I already have. Sunset kissed the hills. Lily walked alone to the old riverbank. Same flat stone, same cottonwood tree. She sat. This time, no pain, only memory. She whispered into the wind, not because she had to, but because she chose to. It hurt when I sat once, but I stood up, and I stayed standing. She reached into her coat, pulled out a new carving, a tiny girl, hands cupped around her mouth, whispering toward the sky. She placed it gently at the foot of the tree, then stood and walked away. No longer a girl who needed saving, now the woman who taught others how to save themselves. 2 years passed. The morning began soft. The breeze smelled of clover and warm bread. Outside the newly built stone courthouse in Red Creek, a crowd had gathered. Townsfolk, survivors, travelers, dozens of familiar faces. Girls and women once silenced, now wearing dresses of their choosing, smiles hard-earned. A white ribbon fluttered above the new monument in the square, chiseled into the stone. She whispered. He heard, so others could speak. Below the inscription, in memory of Jonah Bell. Lily stood before the gathered crowd, aged 30 now but timeless in posture, equal parts teacher and survivor, healer and hammer. She read a letter aloud, one Jonah had written but never mailed. If you are reading this, it means you kept going. I hope the girl I knew became a woman who stands taller than silence. I hope the town remembers not just what it ignored, but what it did right when it finally listened. The breeze stirred again. Lily smiled. Today isn't for sorrow, she said, voice clear. It's for the ones who made it out and the ones still trying. She motioned toward Claire, who now stood proudly beside the plaque, sketchbook in hand. I want to invite someone who reminds me of myself, Lily said, but who's already doing more than I ever did at her age. Claire stepped forward, cheeks red, but eyes firm. She took a breath. Then, with surprising calm, my name is Claire. I used to think I'd never be anything more than broken pieces, but then someone didn't try to fix me. They just sat with me while I learned how to stand. She turned, scanning the crowd. I'm opening a new home, near Hollow Ridge. It's small, but it's real, and I'll name it after the place that saved me. She held up a hand-drawn sign. Haven Hollow. Applause thundered. Lily wiped her eyes not because Claire was following her, but because Claire was surpassing her. That night candlelight flickered across old pages. Lily wrote slowly, deliberately, to the girl who still whispers, I can't promise the world won't try to break you. It will. I can't promise it will listen when you cry. But I promise you this, you are not alone. There are people listening now, watching, waiting to hold the pieces with you until they're yours again. You matter. And your whisper is enough. She sealed the letter, slipped it into an envelope, and marked the outside, for someone who thinks no one hears. Then placed it inside the chest. Jonah had left her, alongside hundreds of similar letters written by other survivors. Someday, when she was gone, someone else would find it, and begin again. 3 years later, the day came like any other, gray sky, drizzle, muddy streets. But inside the general store, a single brown box changed everything. Inside, the first published copies of Lily's memoir, The Girl Who Whispered, by Lily Grace. The cover was simple, a silhouette of a girl sitting on a stone, with wild flowers blooming around her feet. Eva opened the box with trembling hands. "You actually did it," she whispered. Lily smiled. "I didn't write it for me," she said. "I wrote it for the ones still too afraid to speak." Within weeks, hundreds of letters arrived. From other towns, other states, from women in big cities who'd hidden their pain for decades, from small girls writing with crayons, from teachers, judges, even other shelter founders. One note stood out. "I read your book to my daughter. She asked me if whispers could make heroes. I told her, yes, that's how all heroes begin." Lily framed that one, hung it beside Jonah's sketch in her study. Final walk, back to the beginning. It was quiet that evening. No wind, no voices. Lily walked alone to the riverbank. The same path, the same stones. Her gait was slower now, not with age, but with gravity. A quiet knowing. She passed the cottonwood tree, the carving still there. He listened. She knelt by the stone again, not as a girl this time, not even as a woman, but as something else entirely, a witness, a keeper of echoes. She took out a small leather book and added a final line beneath the others, etched carefully into the wood. "Now so do we." She stood, looked back. Children's laughter echoed in the distance. Claire's voice shouted something about lemonade and climbing trees. Lily smiled. The stone didn't hurt anymore, but the memory still mattered. She turned toward the light and walked home. 10 years later, a young woman stood before a group of children beneath the cottonwood tree. She wore a blue shawl and spoke with calm fire. Once there was a girl who whispered because that's all she thought she could do. A child raised her hand. "What happened to her?" The woman smiled. She whispered once, and the whole world changed. She tapped the carving on the tree, because someone heard her, and now so do we. She opened a small wooden box and handed each child a slip of paper. "Write something you wish someone had heard," she said. "No one has to read it. Just let it out." As they wrote, the wind picked up, soft, warm, golden. Laughter returned, and far away, at the top of the hill, a white-haired woman looked down with peace in her eyes. The girl who once whispered, now a legend, now a chorus, now an answer.